This episode is brought to you by Fox One. Watch all 104 matches of the FIFA World Cup live in 4K for just $19.99 a month with 3 days free. Build your own multi-view, choose up to 3 streams, and follow player spotlights. Stay on top of every moment with live stats, highlights, and instant replays. The FIFA World Cup, streaming live on Fox One. Offers are subject to change. See fox.com for complete terms and conditions.
I wrote a little song to remind you, Choice Hotels get you more of the experiences you value. The Cambria Hotel's got it all. A rooftop bar, have a ball. Bring a date, your squad, or even your mom. Book direct at choicehotels.com.
General Blaine Holt, how are you this morning?
Hey, good morning. It's been quite a wild week. I'm doing
Oh my
great.
God! I'm waiting for all these commercials to get finished, etc., etc., etc. We are having a very large discussion this morning. America under attack, and that we're under attack in so many directions. We're under attack. Drug-wise, they're feeding drugs to our kids and other Americans. They are trying to cook our elections, etc., etc. I mean, you've been around for a while. You have the pulse of the situation. What do you say about all this?
Okay, you got to roll it all up into what is a global or world war. That's what this is. And how I would define this war, and it gets to all the things that you're talking about. It's the sovereigntists, which would be indicative of traditional American values that our forefathers and our founders had in mind for this nation, versus the globalists. And the globalists come with other dark names that are probably more descriptive. Marxism, socialism. They want the one world government. They want the corporatists all involved. They want to decide your lives for you. And they have many different legions and armies around the world. And some of those are hatched via those that would go cook your elections, those that would go buy off your politicians, those that would pay protesters to get out there and disrupt the American way of life. And eventually it leads to a place we've seen in history time and time again, and that is violence. And we're seeing it around the world and in the United States.
General Blaine Holt, let's talk about the different theaters in this war, because we've talked about them. It's not just one theater is global terrorism. Terrorism is one way. It's more of a conventional way. People thought that was the new way, but there's also fentanyl. There's also the financial attacks coming against whether it's cyber hacking, whether it's the money laundering that's going into our campaigns. And we were talking to KT McFarland in the last hour about, swimming in different lanes. But to me, ultimately, this is about homeland security. This is about defense. And I do think that the military it plays a bigger role in it than people realize. I mean, just look at all these boats from Venezuela or other countries that were bringing in drugs to this country that now have become part of the military's purview, bombing those, which everyone in this room supports. This is a changing world, but it is a multi-theater, multi-front war, isn't it?
It really is. But again, all these tentacles lead to exactly the same place. Your example on fentanyl. Fentanyl is not a new game. Fentanyl is just a rehash of the opium war that the British waged against the Chinese after the fall of the Qing dynasty in the 1800s. They just dusted off the old playbook. Wait a minute, that intelligence service goes all the way to the founding of MI6. MI6 then spawns the CIA. So what I would tell you is you tell me what the theater is, and I'm going to draw a line, whether it's from Beijing or whether it's from cooked intelligence agencies, whether it's from bought-off politicians, all the way to London. And I don't mean the town of London where people go get their fish and chips. I'm talking about the city of London, the financialists, those who have manipulated and tried to control this planet, basically in one incarnation or another since the fall of Rome. President Trump knows this. He is waging this war against them. And whether it's Operation Gladio that was cooked up from Alan Dulles and the CIA, all that stuff just evolved into where exactly we are in a fifth-generation warfare environment with technological tools that would make your head spin.
Well, let's talk about the technological tools, because this is an issue right now for the Defense Department. We just had this whole issue with Anthropic, this AI company, which was promising that it wouldn't help in anything that it didn't find politically amenable to that company. In other words, they have a bunch of lefty people working there, computer programmers, AI programmers, And Anthropic now, they're trying to work them out so they can maybe work with the Pentagon again. But, we need these people in the tech world to help our Defense Department fight the modern wars. But maybe we can't trust the people working in these companies. I mean, this is a huge problem.
It is. And even the ones, I could list a whole bunch of companies, and you would say, well, they seem pretty trustworthy. And I would tell you, oh, no, they're not. And here's the problem. Let's get back to Alinsky's rules for radicals. The education unions should be patting themselves on the back because you can't have Marxism and communism and legions of infiltrators inside all of these companies without cooking the education system and co-opting it. And that's where this begins. And then get to the leadership, what I would call their junior managers. They're junior managers, the CEOs of these AI companies. And just listen to their words. They believe in absolute surveillance state. They believe in central bank digital currency. They believe in it's okay to be on contract with the Pentagon. And if you don't like the policy, turning the switch off, cooking the information, changing it out. And then you've got the corruption class, which is only too happy to profit from all of it and will stand up and boldly on C-SPAN defend every ounce of it. And so what we have to do is we better get to a season of accountability in this country and find out who is an American and who is on very, very shaky ground with that proposition. And some of the names would, I think, surprise everybody boldly when you lifted the veils. But I think that day is coming.
How does this, though, play out in some of the individual states? President Trump is, like President Reagan, still hoping to rebuild and strengthen our military, and that means local jobs for people. That people remember the Los Angeles class submarine. It wasn't called that because they were rooting for the Rams. It was because it was built in Orange County, that area. This still is that the antidote to what you were just talking about? We start building things in Alabama and Louisiana and in places in this country where people still love this country.
That is where the front lines are, actually. The swamp likes to pat themselves on the back and think that they're the panopticon and the all-knowing, all-seeing. But the tentacles of the globalists go right on down to Main Street and have for some time now. It gets down to the granularity of we're co-opting your library board and putting porn in there for your kids to go look at. That's not because they believe in porn. It's because they believe in control and co-opting American communities. You have two prominent companies. I'm not going to say who they are, but we pretty much all know who they are, that are putting up cameras on every street corner in Main Street America, that they're using AI systems to do pre-crime prediction, that they're enabling their sheriff's departments to go after hardworking Americans. Now, if you think this isn't a problem, and I know you do, but if you think this isn't a problem, all you got to do is pull up the crystal ball called the United Kingdom and look at what's going on in London right now with the government's absolute war on the British peoples. The same thing is happening in Ireland. Ireland is at the brink of a civil war. So is the UK. So are 5 other countries in Europe. So what do we have in common? Well, this is Western civilization. And why are we so far behind the curve? Well, a couple of things. We still have a Constitution, a Second Amendment, and President Trump fully understands the battle space and what he's up against. But this is the battle for America, and it's happening on Main Street, most important battlefield of all.
Well, I mean, let's divert to Iran. We talked about America. Give us your pulse of what's going on in Lebanon and Iran for all Americans to listen to this morning.
Well, so in the region, which is part of this bigger fight, but in the region, we have a really, really good news this morning, which is, okay, the Iranians threw a drone at a ship, and luckily it didn't sink the ship, the Singaporean carrier. They're releasing information this morning. They did so because they want to reiterate to Oman that they're in control of the straits, not Oman, who let that ship have authorization. President Trump's position is, no, neither of you are in control of the straits. By the way, that gets to Lloyd's of London and them using their surrogates to control that traffic. But in Lebanon, we also see great promise because the Israelis are coming much more into alignment with President Trump's vision of how to solve this. And we are seeing that the Lebanese are now standing up and getting their army ready to be vetted, fortified, trained, and work along the Israelis. And the two states each get something out of it. You get the sovereignty for the Lebanese, and you get the Israelis with their security needs respected, And because of the cooperation, we're on our way to the Abraham Accords. And that's the same way it's going to be with the Gulf states working with the free Iran that I do believe will come once the IRGC is eradicated.
General Blaine Holt's with us here. The Katz and Company takeover of Sid and Friends in the morning, day 6. You know all about sieges and things like that, but all kidding aside, you mentioned the situation in Lebanon. And, there's been peace talks going on this week, or they were going on this week in Washington, the second round. The first round of Israel-Lebanon peace talks were very productive. But, there's only so much dancing you can do around the fact that this really isn't about Israel and Lebanon. It's about Israel and Hezbollah. And Hezbollah is teetering in some ways, but still has a lot of teeth left in its mouth. What's your prognosis on that? Is this just a case of, and you talked about the Israelis getting more in line with the United States, is this just a case of patience? I mean, should we be saying to the Israelis, wait it out, this isn't the time, and we'll get, and you got half a loaf now, you'll get the rest of Hezbollah later. Is that a policy that you would get behind?
I could get behind that, absolutely. So what I would say is where Israel needs to have its focus now is tactical operations, defense, and watching the rest of us, including Israel, work together to, like Scott Bessent, chopping off the money, disrupting the supply chains. Lebanon arrests those in Beirut that are associated, and because there's no more money flowing to them, and their life support system through the IRGC has been cut. So when we talk about siege mentality, there's only one way out for Hezbollah, and that's it's not being a part of this planet. But I can see many of the remaining Hezbollah fighters. I think they have 15,000 just raw fighters left. I can see them either evacuating the country or reshaping their views about how they want to live their lives. But the IRGC is not about to be writing checks for them anymore, and this is our opportunity.
Let's talk about saving lives with Blaine Holt, General Blaine Holt. We're seeing the situation in Venezuela. I'm seeing now that we are deploying to Venezuela. The military is going to be playing a much bigger role in the rescue than people might realize. And I think the Venezuelan people should be thankful that this happened when it happened. If Maduro's still in control and that old regime is still in control as it was just a couple of months ago, we are jumping through a lot more hoops to help them. This is going to be a proof to the American people in the whole world that the U.S. military also saves lives. In the end of the day, we save more lives than the other way around.
Oh, there's no question. I'm so glad you brought that up because I have been in the middle of some of these humanitarian responses in my life in the Pentagon. And the rapidity and the fastness with which we deploy things like the Fairfax County USRT dog team and all the other elements. Right now, Venezuela is getting to see the size of the heart of this country as they go through this misery and this deep, deep tragedy. And it is horrific. But I'm talking to everybody from bankers who are getting involved in the response, recapitalizing things, already talking about reconstruction and fixing lives. And this is so good for Venezuela as they're coming back into the world. This is one of President Trump's greatest achievements, and we're not turning our backs on them at this critical moment like the rest of their old friends would. We are responding to the sound of gunfire, and I couldn't be more proud of the military in getting after those missions.
General Fernando Mateo here. Thank you for being on the show with us today. It's always enlightening. But my question is, we all know that the U.S. takes lead when there are disasters anywhere in the world. We have seen that there's a lot of countries now joining the United States and bringing aid and help to Venezuela. And we have a nice-sized Venezuelan population here in New York and in Miami and other places around the country. Do you think that there's going to be an opportunity for those Venezuelans for at least the next year to remain in the United States because of this disaster in Venezuela?
Yeah, I think that would follow the natural course. I can't imagine why it would be in this country's best interest to be deporting folks. Now, the criminality is another matter.
That's a different issue, yeah.
Yeah, it's a totally different issue. But yeah, no, I think you're probably identifying something that's already working its way through the State Department as we speak. But and we absolutely have a historic precedent for when things like this happen. We tap the brakes on our normal processes. And right now, I can tell you that in Washington, D.C., any place, any computer, any email where the name Venezuela pops up, it's the priority. It's got priority. And so I think you're on the right track with how that's gonna unfold.
Yeah.
All right, we got a break coming up. General Holt, thank you so much for coming on today, and thank you for everything you've done for our country, and continue to speak out for our country. And we'll catch up with you again real soon.
And we'll hear from
It's
Suzanne.
my pleasure. Happy 250th.
Thanks for listening to Sid and Friends in the Morning. You can hear Sid and Friends in the Morning weekday mornings at 6. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?